Hi everyone, Metal Breakdown here. So welcome to the very first episode of Metal Breakdown's Q&A podcast. The reason why I'm saying Q&A podcast is because each week, we'll try to do one every Monday. I know that right now it's Tuesday, but I think I'll be able to upload one every Monday most of the time, so we'll try to go with that. And the reason why it's called Q&A is because I'm asking to you guys right now to ask me a question for next week's episode. So you can ask me about anything that you want. It just have to be related to metal. So I'll give you some ideas right now of what you could ask me about. You could ask me to compare two albums by a band, ask me which one is my favorite, or even two albums by two different bands. For example, of the same year, and we could do some kind of battle between these two albums. My favorite band of a genre, my favorite songs from a band that you want, my thoughts on a band or on an album or on a piece of news that just came out. It can be about really anything that you want. I'm sure you have even better ideas than what I'm saying right now. But I'll try to do one every week. And we'll try to always make them around 15 minutes, so it's not a super hour-long podcast, but just around 15 minutes. And maybe I'll have guests eventually. Maybe it could be some of you guys, some friends of mine, or anyone that can help me talk about a subject. So we'll try to do that. And of course, when we'll have guests, the podcasts will be longer for sure. I already did one back in the day. I think it was in 2017, and it was like an hour and a half long with me and my friend talking about our top 20 of our favorite bands. So maybe we'll do some podcasts as long as this one in the future, but most of the time it will be just me doing podcasts around 15 minutes. So that's pretty much it for this intro, guys. So for the first episode, since I did not let you the chance to choose a subject for the first one, I went with a question myself, something I thought would be interesting to talk about. So the question of the very first album is of the very first album? What the fuck am I saying? Of the very first podcast is about the future of Avenged Sevenfold. So what's next for them? We'll try to talk about that in that one. I know if you're not a fan of that band, this one might not be for you, but at the same time, it could still be really interesting. Again, I'm still really new to this, so this first episode might suck, but I'm pretty sure I'll get better over time. So first of all, the reason why I wanted to talk about them is because they're my favorite band out there. You can judge me for that. I know it's a band that a lot of people love to hate. And even though right now in 2019, they're not the band I'm the most excited about when they release new stuff, I'm saying it's my favorite band, and they will probably always be my favorite because they had such a huge impact on me when I was younger. That's really the band that got me into metal that much around the time that the album Nightmare was released in 2010. That's really when I really started to get into metal, and they had such a huge influence on me. It's also the band I saw live the biggest amount of time. I saw them 8 times right now, and I really want to see them again probably next year. That would be sick. So before we really talk about the future of that band, I really want to go back before the album Nightmare was released, when Jimmy the Rev Sullivan died during the making of the album. He contributed to most of the song on that album, but not on the recording of it. That was performed by Mike Portnoy, who was the drummer of Dream Theater back then. So he did all the drums in the studio, but most of the parts were already written by the Rev. and he contributed also to a lot of lyrics on that album. So even though Avenged Sevenfold kind of made Nightmare without Jimmy, it was still like a huge part of it, and that was really like when Avenged Sevenfold really took off. They took off way back with Waking the Fallen and City of Evil, and even on the self-title, but with Nightmare, that's really when they got huge. Their first number one album in the United States. I think it was also number one in the UK. I'm not sure for that one, but I'm sure at 100% that Hail to the King, the album that came out after that, was number one as well in the UK. Anyway, that's when they got huge after that. They released Hail to the King in 2013. And again, number one in many countries around the world. And that's when they were like next level type of band. That's when they headlined Download Festival in the UK for the first time. And that's when they made these huge songs like Hail to the King and Shepherd of Fire, This Means War. So many hits on that album. And at first, when it got released, I was like, wow, this is sick. It's way more mainstream. I would compare it to Metallica's Black Album. But they got huge, and at first it really excited me, but that's always like that with that band. At first, when they released a new album and it did the same thing again with The Stage, I'm like so excited, so hyped that for the like first 6 months to a year, I'm like, oh, this is the greatest album ever. They nailed it. And after a while, I'm like, finally, it's not that great. At least those were my thoughts for both Hail to the King and The Stage, especially The Stage. At first I loved it so much, but it was different for that album because many fans did not like it at all because it's so different, it's so weird, especially if you take a song like Simulation. You can just listen to that and you're like, what the fuck were they thinking? What is going on? The subjects are great. The entire album is about artificial intelligence, but it's just weird what they did and not really what the fans want to hear. But again, it's the album that they wanted to make, and I don't think they really cared about what the fans would say, and they did not promote the album as well. It was a surprise release only. The Stage, the single, was released beforehand. So yeah, weird promotion with weird music, but it still debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200 and even number 1 in Canada, which is where I live. So was it a failure? I don't think so, because they still did some arena tour after that, which sold out for many, many shows. And they did the tour with Metallica opening for them. That was a big opportunity. And I think it helped them to be even bigger because that's such a huge exposure for them. Metallica is playing like some huge fucking show, sometimes around 50,000 persons. So it's incredible. Avenged are doing well on their own, but maybe not as good as Metallica, that's for sure. And now we're finally to the subject I really wanted to talk about in this podcast, and it's what is next for Avenged Sevenfold. Can they maintain that big notoriety that they have right now? Can they stay as huge? Because my thought on this, and I'll be completely honest with you guys, is that if they put out another album that is not really that successful like The Stage, their popularity could go down and they could lose like the headliner spot at Download, for example, the next time they go there. Because yeah, this is something that could certainly happen. So in my opinion, they have to put out an incredible album next time around, which is supposed to come out in 2020. That's still pretty uncertain, but it's looking like it will be released during summer 2020. So they have some big things to accomplish with this album. The safest thing to do, in my opinion, for them would be to do another album like Hail to the King, but at the same time, the fans could complain that It sounds exactly the same, and I know they will never do that. They will never do that for sure, because one thing we learned from Avenged over the years is that they never do the same album over and over again. Each time they're bringing something completely different. With the latest song they released, it's called Mad Hatters, from the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 game, and it's more grunge. A lot of Alice in Chains influence in that song, so maybe next time around we could have an album with a lot of grunge influences, but I don't think so neither. I really don't know what we could expect from the next Avenged Sevenfold album. Will it be progressive again, like The Stage? Will it be a return to classic rock and hard rock like Hail to the King? Or will they return to their more Avenged Sevenfold sound, like what we got in albums like the self-titled, Nightmare, and City of Evil? But even these three albums are not really sounding the same, but they're sounding more like Avenged Sevenfold to me. And there's another question: can they have that kind of sound without the rev? Because in Nightmare and on the self-title, he was starting to do some vocals, so that was a huge part of their sound back then, and he was bringing a lot of things creatively in all the albums he was part of. So can they still sound like they sounded they sound in the day without the rev? That's a big question. Now at least we have Brooks Wackerman as a drummer, and I'm sure he can bring some fantastic things. We already saw that on the stage, but I'm sure they can do even better with him. But we'll see. And it's Avenged Sevenfold are really taking their time right now. They have stopped touring since like June or July. Yeah, I think it was July 2018. So for almost a year and a half now, they are off. So, or they were off. So they had plenty of time to work on the perfect album to follow The Stage, which will be released next year, like I said. So, they're probably really taking their time to make sure it's perfect and to not fuck up this time around. And they said they would do a lot of promotion for it when they will be ready to do so. So, I'm definitely excited for that. As a huge fan of them, I cannot wait to finally have some information about the upcoming album. But I just want to be happy with it so much. So, I don't know, guys. I would love to have your thoughts on that. Do you think Avenged can do an incredible album again and stay a huge band like for their entire career, like Slipknot is doing right now? They just dropped We Are Not Your Kind, their 6th studio album, and they're doing fantastic, still as huge as ever. So can Avenged Sevenfold do something like that? That's a big question we have to ask ourselves. So if there's some fans of that band right now, I'm really curious to hear what you think on that. That's a big question that I want to have answers to. So that was it for the first episode of this Q&A podcast. Hopefully you guys liked it. Make sure to tell me in the comment section if you did and what I should improve and the things you liked about that. I'm really open to any suggestions. It was my first one, like I said, so it was probably not really good, but I'm sure I'll get better over time. And like I asked at the very beginning of this podcast, make sure to ask your question for the second episode of the podcast, which I'll do probably next Monday. So to pick my question, I'll go with the question in the comment section that will have the biggest amount of like on it. So if there's a question that interests you already in the comment section, just like it. It will go up, and for next week's episode, I'll just choose the question with the biggest amount of like, and the next one will probably be even more interesting for you guys because it will be a question asked by the fan and not a question I chose myself beforehand. So I'll hand it right here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content, and I'll try to make these podcasts available on Apple and iTunes and Spotify, just to have some big exposure and maybe gain some new fans that way. Thank you so much again for listening. I'll see you all next time.